Well, good morning again, everybody.
Good morning.
So we already introduced, it's such a pleasure to have Bill Rogers, Chairman and CEO of Truist Financial Corporation today. Welcome, Bill. Thank you for doing this with us.
Great.
And also thank you for being the gold sponsor for this conference as well and all the partnership that we have with Truist. So before yesterday, we had a conversation with Andrew Strasberg from Invesco. And he gave a lot of answers that we took notes on. And today, we are just going to verify them that he was right by talking the same questions to you. But before we go there, let's just...
I didn't know the sequence of this. I know Andrew well, so I'll
He was concerned that he was going first, but now it's okay. He's already gone. But let me start by actually getting to know you a little bit more, and tell us a little bit about your career, about what has led you up through to be a CEO, and a little bit about Truist as well.
Sure. Just maybe I'll start with Truist. Truist is the formation, merger of equals, now celebrating our 5 year of a merger of equals. We're the 7th largest bank in the country. Our primary sort of retail markets are Mid-Atlantic and Southeastern markets, which are, the fantastic markets. I mean, people are in-migrating into our markets. Our businesses are consolidated into sort of 2 core businesses, pretty simply stated, sort of our wholesale business, dealing with businesses from small businesses to multinationals. We've got a significant investment banking business that supports them, and then consumer business that touches our consumer businesses from entry-level consumer all the way to wealthy individuals as well. In terms of what Truist really is, though, and when we ever start a presentation, when we have anything that has a slide attached to it, we start with our purpose. Yeah. And this was a merger of equals built on purpose. That was the foundation. When we talk about it, those are the pillars that are deep in the ground. And our purpose is to inspire and build better lives and communities. Yeah. And that's the focus of what we do. It's the why of why we're here and what guides our teammates in their daily actions. And by the way, in AI and the things that we invest in from technology are all centered around a concept of purpose. My own personal career, it's hard to sort of put the numbers to it because then you have to actually look at the driver's license and realize your age. But 40 plus years, my entire professional career at Truist. I've been lucky to have, I think, 7 or 8 careers. I've just had them at one company. So I've done a lot of different things within the company and just really proud to have been there that time. And I'm not the only veteran. I mean, there are a lot of really long tenured teammates at Truist who I think are drawn to our purpose and want to do important things in our communities.
So you mentioned about the values of Truist, and one of the values, if I believe, is also happiness. Well, yes. At Truist as well. So tell us more about that as well.
I love working for a company that has happiness as a value. So I have a conference room that sits next to my office, and it's in the conference room. We named the conference rooms after our values, and this is the happiness conference room. So I love when I'm on a panel or on something. So on the Zoom or the Teams, or whatever, it doesn't come across as Bill Rogers. It comes across as happiness, and it always gets a conversation started. Sometimes people are trying to make, you're in the happiness conference. What does that mean? But all of a sudden, we're spending time talking about our company's value. And I spent a lot of time studying the science of happiness. I think at Harvard they have a good class. Are you allowed to mention another school while you're here?
I mean, for the right price. For the right price, indeed.
But Tal Ben-Shahar leads a happiness course, so I decided during COVID I would actually take the course. I would sort of go in and take the course to try to understand the science of happiness. And for me, the biggest discovery, and it's totally aligned with our company's purpose, is the highest correlation to happiness is doing purposeful work. So people who understand the purpose of their work, understand the difference that they're making, and feel like their discretionary effort is resulting in something that's important and purposeful, they're happiest. And so to us, it's sort of a nice correlation. It's not just happy, smiling, and singing, but it's doing purposeful work and having that correlate to people having meaning in the work that they do.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. But now let me connect it to the conference itself. You mentioned your purpose is to build better lives, better communities,
Right.
and happiness.
Right.
So now let's talk about how AI
Sure.
is going to play a role in that.
And AI does that. This is totally unfair because you have our head of AI later on in this panel. So like I feel like my class is being audited.
We like to trust and then we verify.
But we were actually talking a little bit backstage about sort of how AI is an important part of our purpose. And he was making a comment which I thought was really brilliant. Is used, we're starting to use the vernacular. We think words are obviously very important, is augmented intelligence versus artificial intelligence. And just think about that just as a concept of how artificial intelligence help us do our work. How does it help us inspire and build better lives and communities? How does it help? How does it augment versus replace? Because I think artificial sometimes, like people, the synonym is replace, and I love the concept of the word augment. So the things that we're doing, the things that we're focusing on, the things that we approve as it relates to artificial intelligence, we always put that lens on there. Is it going to make the experience for the client better? Will it help them have a better life? Will it have an impact on the community? Is the work that we do? So that is one of the lenses. We use many, but that is one of the lenses that we go through.
Yeah. So, Bill, Truist also, I've seen a lot. You are also, sponsoring and sometimes being present in many of the sports arenas and whatnot. So, to use that sports analogy, what are some of the defensive and offensive how do you handle the offensive and defensive investments in AI and innovation?
Yeah. But maybe first, let me sort of go back a little bit and sort of talk about how we think about the framework. So the provost was talking about speed of AI and where the university may be and whatnot. For us, and I think financial institutions in particular, and Truist certainly specifically, getting the governance right is really important. And it's important for the things that we talked about. It's important in the offense and defenses. It's important in terms of what the technologies can do, and quite frankly, the risk that are associated with those technologies. We're in a highly regulated business, so it's important that we own that. So we have spent the last 24 months doing a lot of work on risk governance and just making sure that we have the frameworks. And I talked about the lens that we used and the things that we do and the way that we approve projects and the things that we invest in to ensure that they have the integrity, not only the financial return. I mean, clearly we want to have that be part of the process, but do they have the integrity, the guardrails in terms of how we think about these things. So that's an important part of the framework, is creating the infrastructure, and then going to the offensive and defensive. And those are probably pretty good terms, but they're all in light of in support of clients. And so using tools to help protect our clients from fraud is one of the big areas where we're deploying AI from a defensive position. So really understanding the sequences and patterns that we see, and be able to alert clients and ask clients questions. Did you mean to do this? Boy, we saw a pattern here that looks unusual from other patterns. We use technology to uncover that, and be able to reach out to clients and help them identify those issues. And then for us to be able to shut things off. And then on the offensive side, again, helping make our teammates' experiences better. So helping them, it's that concept of augmenting, using AI to help them consolidate information. I spent yesterday an hour, which I do frequently, listening to our care center calls. So I just got on with you can imagine how much they love. The CEO is going to come in and listen, put headphones on and listen for an hour. She was awesome.
You're giving me ideas. I'm
no.
Going to the classrooms and seeing what
it's been a support. I told her this was the lowest risk hour of her entire career, But it highlights all the opportunities that we have to help teammates do their jobs better and use technology to and AI to consolidate information, policies, procedures, all the things that they have to navigate and learn. And there's no way they could know all those answers and all those things. But with technology, with AI specifically, they can get to them really quickly. So using it from that standpoint. Same thing with our investment banking teams and our wealth teams. They rely on giving great advice, and great advice comes from using lots of information, understanding an industry or a product or whatever it may be, and using AI just to augment and supplement the work that they're doing. Within our online and digital offerings, we have something called Truist Assist. So over 200 different activities that clients can do on their own using large language models to help them. So we have over 200 million interactions that they can answer on their own. So there's some of the offensive and defensive ways to think about it.
Yeah. So the pace of change, the rapid changes that are taking place and transformation that is taking place, it would be interesting to know. There are unanticipated risks that come with this, right? Exactly. So how do you manage that risk, and how are you thinking about managing the risks that are associated with the fast changes that are coming?
That was the important part of establishing the framework and establishing the governance in terms of how we make decisions and how we think about mitigating the risk. And look, the things that we just say, gosh, this is really cool, this is leading edge, but we can't identify the risk. That's going to go to the back trail in terms of decisions that we have to make. The things that sit at the front would be things that we can identify the risk. They have high return, and we can put the guardrails around it. So it's a really important thing that we do. I mean, we have this incredible fiduciary role for in our case almost 15 million clients that we have their data. And they expect us to guard their data carefully. They want us to use their data to help them. They also want it to be protected. So those issues are critically important to us in terms of how we think about any kind of technology we deploy, and certainly AI, one of those.
So you mentioned clients, and of course there are all these consumers and customers that you have. How is Truist trying to help these customers to, for example, look to be able to increase their efficiencies of supply chains, et cetera, especially with this global environment? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, just in terms of our corporate clients, in terms of supply chain, I mean, we have an entire business line devoted to helping clients navigate their supply chain, and we talk to them about ways that we can intersect with them. So we might provide lending and advances to certain supply chains. We understand certain vendors. We can help support those vendors in terms of what they're doing. So it is a specialized area in our investment banking business in terms of offering advice to clients to help them manage their supply chains, and that is becoming an increasingly important, complex way that they we think about traditional working capital. This is that times 10 in terms of managing the whole supply chain process.
Yeah. So, a lot of folks that I have talked to, they talk about the guardrails that are necessary as we, keep working on AI applications, right, particularly. So what would that be in your mind? Would that be policy? Would that be an application? What are some of the low-hanging fruits that we should?
Yes. Because the guardrails are defined a lot of different ways. Certainly policy. But specific policies in place. We have governance in place, so it has to go through a governance process, and that requires a lot of different eyes looking, challenge along the way. I mentioned earlier we have a purpose lens as well. So actually, does it matter? Is it important? Does it make a difference in the world? And that's a good lens to look through as well as we think through that. So we have a lot of different guardrails that are critical.
Yeah. So you mentioned also, I think, data privacy, how your customers like to have that, whether they are corporate or otherwise. But there is also an increased demand for personalization. So how do you balance that data privacy with personalization?
It is a foundation of how we think about the world. So within our logo is this concept of 3 T's. And the T's are touch and technology equal trust.
I thought it equaled Truist.
It does equal Truist as well, but there's this concept of touch and technology equaling trust, and to be able to use those, in synonymous ways. And so the examples would be, we don't want to do anything that doesn't give the client an opportunity to opt out. And that's part of, I think, the privacy. That's part of that clients have these opportunities to opt out. Clients don't want to be told what to do. They want to have a lot of options. So even in our Truist Assist options, you can come in and interact with us completely digitally, but you're always going to have that option to opt out and to talk to someone. The touch component also is in how do we create a level of care. Even if we're dealing with you fully digitally, how do we create this level of care from the digital experience so that we know you, you have a unique experience with us. You feel like this was Truist knew me, they understood me, solved my problem, and helped me live and fulfill a better life. How do we do that in a digital only framework? So these are the concepts that we think through, that touch and technology equal trust. Can trust be digitized? If you sort of think about that as like a larger concept, and we always want to sort of be at the intersection to make sure that we're always focused on the trust side of this, and not just technology alone, but also not just touch alone, because that's not efficient. That has to be augmented. We talked about that earlier. Even in a case where our branch teammates or our investment banking teammates or our care center teammates, we want them to be augmented by technology, that what they deliver from the touch standpoint can be more efficient, more effective, more client-centric, more individualized, personalized than it would be otherwise. But we think about that as an important loop, that they work together, they don't work separately. We don't have the touch unit and the technology unit, they all come together synonymously, and they all have a foundation and a cone of trust that sits around that.
So bringing it back to the theme of the conference even more closely, part of it is to think about what's going to happen in 10 years. So think about, tell us what you think, how the banking industry is going to be changed by AI in 10 years or 5 years, because 10 may be too long.
Well, it may be too long, and I think we don't know. I mean, I think the concepts of things are changing at such a rapid pace. What we want to do is create optionality around all the things that could happen. We want to do it in a framework that I talked about, this touch and technology coming together. We want to do it in a framework of purpose. So we don't have this is exactly what the world's going to look like from financial services, payments, but pick any of the categories, all knowing that we want to have the most optionality. We want to do it in the framework that makes sense. And we don't want to be closed-minded to anything. I think the biggest risk is to start from our foundation and go forward. Here are the things that we have versus here are the things that are available to clients. I think you're going to talk later. You've got fintech partnerships. You have a lot of concepts in this conference of using different tools and different partners to achieve the same thing. But I think the most important thing is to, maybe going back to your sports analogy, is to be in the athletic position. Is to be highly trained, highly skilled, looking forward on your toes versus your heels, because the ball may go left or it may go right, and you actually have to be prepared to go both ways.
Yeah. So I'm going to take advantage of you being here today to ask you a different question. Part of convening conferences like this is to really think about some questions that might be great for our researchers to think about, especially if they are coming in top of mind from the industry. Yeah. So tell us something that we should be looking at that perhaps academia is not looking at, that should be, especially in AI and finance. And let me add to that a second side of it. We just introduced a new College of Lifetime Learning.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, what would be some of the things a college like that could be, closing some of the gaps that you think are there in the industry?
Yeah, maybe I'll talk about a couple, and this will be that'll be interesting and a little bit unique to financial services. And I think this is a concept of sort of using technology against our framework and against the regulatory environment, because you end up with a low common denominator when you put all those elements, and what you want to get is a high common denominator. So let's talk maybe a couple of examples. So in thinking about using tools and information to approve loans such that more people can enter the financial services arena, and that should be an objective for all of us, that we get more people that can get the benefit. We have so many that are outside of financial services. We want to get them inside the arena. And we can use tools to look at people's less traditional ways of income. So today we have lots of what I would call blunt tools, FICO scores. So a lot of things that are just sort of blunt tools. And we have the opportunity to look at rent payments and phone payments and all the other things that could go along with it when we have the tools to do that. If we use AI, we use large models to think through that, we'll get more people into the system, but we won't know exactly why every time. Does that make sense? And but from a regulatory standpoint, you have to know and prove why you said yes or no. So the challenge would be, and I think this would be a good thing to undertake, is, are we willing to, make one mistake and make 100 more loans? I think that's a good trade-off. And today we have to use the technology, but we have to stop at the intersection and say, now we have to have a human intersect, because we have to be able to say why we said yes or no. So I think there's a good sort of a philosophical, what's the objective? Is the objective to make a mistake on one or get 100 more into the system? I think the whole concept of, and you've got a lot of, again, good people here on these panels, is the whole concept of the payment system as a whole. We have lots of different rails in the payment system, and some are inside the regulated industries, some are outside. This concept of fraud and what can be intersected, privacy. So there's a whole big element of study there that I think that universities could take on and put the moral compass on that as well. It's not like what's the most efficient, but what's the best for society? If we think about what's the best thing for society in terms of these advances, in terms of, again, protecting clients, eliminating fraud, putting in a system that's regulated in the sense of small r, in the sense of that it's understood and protected.
This is terrific. I mean, it's got me thinking a lot of things that you're talking about. We will begin taking some questions. There's a mic on this side and a mic on this side. If you have questions, please line up so that I know that you will be asking questions. Otherwise, I have plenty of my questions otherwise. So please, it'll depend on that. But you have been talking a lot about purpose and a lot about doing good for society, doing good for the community. How important is it for students who are graduating to look at companies' purpose and match up, and how do they match up their own personal purposes with the company's purpose?
I think it's one of the most important elements to think through. So we ask all of our teammates, we have 40,000 teammates, we ask them, we don't demand, to think about their own personal purpose. What is their why? What's important to them? Sort of the why am I on this planet? What's important to me? What do I want to achieve? And we ask them to talk about it openly. And then we ask them, does it intersect with our purpose? And let's show how that happens. I would say 99.9% of the time, the Venn diagram intersects. Mm-hmm. And that's where the action happens. So when your own personal purpose interacts with the company's personal purpose, that's when the magic happens. That's when the discretionary effort comes in. That's when the happiness comes in, the fulfillment from doing a job, and where the speed happens. So I think it's really important. And I will say, I did this the other day. We had 100 or so of our leadership development teammates, and we had a question series. And I said, when you asked me the question, would you mind, if you're comfortable, telling me about your personal purpose? Knocked it out of the park. And they were so well defined and well understood. And I think it's a testament to the educational system, because they came out with a purpose. They came out, they understood it. When I graduated college, we didn't talk about purpose. That isn't really sort of like, was get a job, and like work. That was my purpose, like
there was honesty there.
Well, there was. But and then over time, I realized, actually the work we do here is really important. It's aligned with the things that I want to accomplish in my life, and the connection happened. But I think the university system's already doing a great job. I mean, just my evidence of what I see and our teammates' ability to articulate, which has been well thought out, their personal purpose has been off the charts.
So I'm going to lose control of being able to ask questions based on the lines that are forming, but I do want to ask one question.
These are scary lines, by the way.
But I do want to ask one other question. When you're talking about purpose, and it's really something that, we are also talking about people living longer.
Yeah.
We are also talking about people who are going to be in multi-generational teams. And perhaps the purposes across generations of personal purposes of people across generations could be different. So it'll be a challenge to be able to have that intersection in that Venn diagram that you're talking about for so many different age groups working in a team.
I'll take the opposite side of that, actually. I think it's a way for generations in the team to find a common connection. I think what we find more often is that there's a more common purpose. There's a different framework. I mean, we have an incredibly inclusive, diverse company, so there's just incredible diversity in frameworks, and people are coming at it from different directions. But when they sit in a room and have that discussion, I think they actually find the place to bring it together and say, oh my gosh, I'm going to supplement or augment, sort of my personal purpose based on what the experience that I'm experiencing in these multi-generational rooms. So I take the opposite side of that I think it's actually a way to bring us together.
Great. So let's take some scary questions now.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll start with this side.
Yeah, exactly.
Please introduce yourself very briefly, and just please limit it to one question so that we can get everybody's questions in time.
Hey, I'm Sharia. I'm a fourth year studying finance. My question to you was, you mentioned earlier in the talk of like having 7 to 8 different careers within the firm. What was that process like jumping between divisions? Was it more of like, hey, I climbed the 7th highest mountain, now I got to go down, rebuild myself and climb the 6th highest? Or was it sort of a climb all the way to Mount Everest and like cabin stops along the way? And if you could pair that with the practical advice you gave, you mentioned that you went to the call center and listened for an hour. So practically, when you jump from a division like commercial to investment banking, what did you do in that division? Who did you talk to? How did you learn very quickly about the division on the practical side of things as well?
Sure. In most of my career, others had a responsibility, that you did a good job. Hopefully you were, recognized in some way and then given opportunities. And some of those opportunities did go like that. I took many opportunities where I was managing hundreds of thousands of people down to 4, just to learn a different skill and do something different. But what's changed today, and certainly at our company, and I think in corporate America, is you own it now. So you own your career. At our company, everyone can have a career coach. I mean, literally every single teammate can have their own career coach. They can look and see what the skills that they need to acquire to do the next job or another job. So it's it's clearly outlined. So the ownership of the career has changed dramatically. And I think as you enter the workforce, is think about that. I own this. I don't actually have to be dependent on the company to tell me or notice me. I own it. I get to own it. I get to have tools and build my career and raise my hand and say, this looks interesting and this is an opportunity. So I think if I were given the advice is recognize, I think we're built today for you to own it. And I think that's like one of the best dramatic changes that have happened in corporate America is people can manage their careers better. And then we see, so many opportunities of people flourishing when they use all those tools.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ria, studying computer science. My question for you is, you talked about how you think of AI as augmenting which I thought was very interesting. But there's no doubt that AI is still replacing jobs and causing a lot of jobs to become obsolete. So how do you balance augmenting with replacing?
Yeah, it's a great question. And that's going to be the social question for all of us as we think through, where does AI fit? And what does it do in terms of replacing jobs? But it's also going to create opportunities and things that we didn't even know about. I did a listening session a while ago with people who had joined our company within the last 90 days. They just want to sort of like, why did you come? And as I was reflecting on looking at the teammates that were there and looking at their jobs, what I realized is none of their jobs existed 5 years ago. And this was a group of 35 teammates. None of their jobs existed. So while there clearly will be replacement, I think we're also going to create new opportunities, and we're going to be in businesses, and we're going to interact in new ways. And so we're going to need new talent and others that come along. I don't know how the social is going to balance out over time. I think this concept of augmented is an important sort of framework. But I also think going to create new opportunities and different opportunities. And that's part of the athletic position too, is I don't know what those new jobs are going to be 5 years from now, but I know there are going to be a lot of them that we didn't have today.
Great. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible, but we do have a hard stop at 10 o'clock. So go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Rogers. I'm Dilip Modi. I run a fintech business in India. A pleasure to be here, sir. Three themes that touch me. One is your constant talk about purpose, but also about touch and technology and driving financial inclusion. Coming from a country like India where 1 billion people need access to loans, how do you address the issue of cost to serve? Because having touch means cost to people, and technology, AI is still on the expensive side. We heard yesterday about, that there's still cost associated with that. Though at the position at which you sit, how do you manage the conflict between cost to serve, yet making sure that you have touch as well as use of technology to solve financial inclusion?
Yeah, it's a constant battle because today consumers want all of it. So when we talk about this augmented capabilities, or we talk about this new technology, they also want that physical branch, or they also want the other. So they want to have all of that combined. So I think today, and I think people talk about the efficiency of AI. I think certainly we'll see a lot of that. I'm not one to say I'm going to put a marker in. Others have done it. That we're going to create 400 basis points of 400 basis points of efficiency over this, because I don't know yet. Because I think some of it is supplementing and doing it both. So I think that's something we'll constantly wrestle with. But this important part of financial inclusion, and that's why I made the comment about loans and using time. We want to, sometimes the hole is too small that we're trying to get all this through, and I think the goal is to try to expand that. I mean, I think the goal is to get more people financially competencies increasing as we go along, because that's the way that we get more people into the system. But it's something that we think about. I mean, you're right on it. Think about it all the time. Today it's a 2 + 2 = 5 kind of feel, versus a 2 + 2 = 3, which is the promise. So it's got a little bit of an imbalance.
I'm rewriting all of the math books, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Kosha. I'm a user experience designer. Thank you so much for everything that you shared with us. One thing that really stood out to me was that you talk about having these guardrails and being responsible with innovation. So my question to you is, as a young professional or a recent graduate student, how do we get a seat at the table where these discussions are happening to influence product development?
Well, we just did it. I mean, we just literally had our immersion experience. How many students do we have?
25.
Yeah, 25 students. Again, we just did this, immersion learning experience, and I've got a quick report. I mean, there were 4 or 5 things that came out of that we're going to be like in implementation mode. And then back to the earlier question on owning your career, then you have to get in them. Does that make sense? So like know when they're happening, and raise your hand and say, hey, why am I not in this opportunity? Why am I not at this table in terms of owning the career? By the way, no one's going to say anything other than, hey, that's a great question, and let me go find the table and put you on it. I mean, that'll be the objective.
Thank you.
Great. So what he's talking about is the 25 of Georgia Tech students, Scheller students included in there, worked alongside Truist designers and Amazon Web Services architects to build really prototypes of an AI app. That's what he's referring to. I know it's spring break, so many students may not be there, but are there students who participated in that? Okay, so after this session
I
is
thought he was
over,
asking if there were students here, and I'm like,
and others who were participating in that, if you are there, here after this conversation is over, please do come back to the stage. We'll try to take a picture with Bill while he's here and take advantage of that as well. So go ahead, please.
well, I've successfully embarrassed myself in front of the entire auditorium right there. But hey, I'm Phil Allen. I'm a current evening MBA student focused on strategy and innovation. Georgia Tech has focused on fostering that entrepreneurial spirit pretty heavily, to the point where I think Chris Klaus posted this on LinkedIn a couple days ago, where we're number 2 at Y Combinator for founders coming out of Georgia Tech, ahead of that other university mentioned earlier. But I know Truist has a huge venture arm. What types of early stage ventures do you think Truist is going to be focused on in the near term, and where do you think the biggest opportunity is?
Yeah, so one, congratulations. I also did an evening MBA, so I know how hard it is. Mine took longer than, I think it was the longest evening MBA student in the history of time. And I'm sure you're experiencing this. My wife and I just, if you ask us about that time period, because we were starting a family, I was traveling, ask us about a TV show or a movie or anything during that, we have no idea. Like, we were blanked out during that time period. So I'll say two things. One is we have a concept of, entrepreneur within our own company. So, I mean, I think I appreciate all the, desire to start up and founders and whatnot, but there's also an opportunity to do that within companies, and so we just talked about these incubation and things that we're doing. So we're trying to create that environment within our own company. And then within our venture capital group, we really look at a couple of things, and we're always sort of, the push and the pull. But generally, we're trying to invest in leading technologies, obviously in financial services, but things that we can see that we can commercialize. So we're interested in investing in venture, but we're really interested in investing in venture that can scale across our platforms. Innovation scale is really hard. And so we try to look at things that have some kind of commercial application, that we bring those venture teams into our company, so the places that we've invested, and we do similarly like a immersion kind of experience, and we sit around with our business leaders and try to say, okay, well, this is really interesting, love your idea, but it has no application. And we just can't see a way that we can apply this at scale. Or, boy, have you thought about this? If you thought about it going this direction versus that direction, this is the way that we can apply it. So generally things that are obviously in financial services, and generally things that we think can scale for the benefit of our clients.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mike Skronecki, a double jacket from when this school was much smaller, and my questions are going to revolve around size. First, I'm taken by the purpose of building community, but was also struck by the fact that you're now the 7th biggest bank. So my question, I'm old enough to remember when Truist was a community bank. So what is the future of actually being in the community versus moving more digital? And what are you doing now to kind of make sure people, your team members are doing like you did and got involved in community activities like the Boys and Girls Clubs?
Yeah, great question. I mean, and what we like to think is that we're a community bank in every community. We're just a really large amalgamation of community banks, and we augment that community with the benefit of scale. So the benefit of scale is we have tools, capabilities, products, advice, and things that can't be offered in a smaller entity, that we can get the benefit of the scale. But the objective is to try to run it, so from community. So each of our communities has community leaders. We have, community commitments. We have things that they're engaged in and they're involved in. We try to make sure that they are involved in the things that are important to their communities. And then we also want to be at scale in each community, so that's where you can have the largest impact. So that's something that we sort of keep in mind at all times, and that's a little bit of that balancing act too. How are you the big bank that brings all the scale, technology capabilities, but deliver it locally with a touch and feel that feels like it's consistent with the fabric of that community. We ask all of our leaders to get engaged that are things that are important to them, their personal purpose, and that are aligned with what's important to the community.
Do you see a physical bank presence going by the wayside, and is George Bailey dead concept?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think the physical branch part is still an important part of the ecosystem, and that was a discussion we were having earlier. As people sort of want both. Today, when I leave here, I'm going to go to some of our branches and sort of just talk to clients and talk to our teammates and see what the interaction is. What's happening more today, the transaction activity in branches is way down. 70+% of the transactions that clients do with us are digitally. So generally, when they're in a branch physically, they may have interacted with us digitally along the way, but they want to complete it at the branch. They want to start a mortgage process, but maybe complete it. They want to. We've interacted with them on investment opportunities or their retirement planning, but they might want to come in and sort of finish that at the cycle. So what's happening with the physical branch is it's a little more of an advice out physical location than a transaction in physical location, and that's sort of how we're thinking about them.
Thank you. Hey, Bill, thanks for coming out today and sharing your insights. So I'm Kritik, by the way, fourth year CS major here. I know you mentioned impact and purpose being important to our careers. How has yours changed over the long career you've had at Truist? And also, I know you must have a stressful job being a CEO, so are you a tea or a coffee person?
My personal purpose, and my wife and I sort of worked on this together, is to take care of my corner. That's what I define as my personal purpose. And the concept of that is whatever corner I'm involved in, am I giving a disproportionate effort to make it better? So does my impact make a difference to my corner? So has it had an impact? And what it's allowed me to do is evolve that over time. So my corner initially might have been, my unit that I managed at the company, might have been my church, might have been my family, and my corner today is much more significant. It's 40,000 teammates. I mean, they're all in my corner. So that concept of my personal purpose of taking care of my corner has allowed me to sort of, accordion, expand and shrink it. And my family's expanded. My family's now 18 people, so it allows me to sort of think through that. And I've literally had one cup of coffee in my lifetime, and it was when we called on a coffee company. The person I was with knew I didn't drink coffee. The chairman rolled out the fancy coffee cart, and he looked at me and said, "You're going to have your first cup of coffee today?" And I did, and it was awful. So I'm a tea drinker.
Got it. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Hi, Sarah Scruggs. I'm a QCF alumni board member and a director at the Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta. So first of all, thank you for coming and sharing your insights with my community today. One thing that comes with AI is unintentional consequences. Mm-hmm. And something that concerns me particularly with regards to lending is that AI must be trained on historical data. So what are you and your team doing to combat historically racially biased policies in lending as AI tools get developed for lending in the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's the topic I talked about in terms of so today we sort of stop. We don't let AI make the final decision because actually that's really important to us and it's important to our regulators. And we just have to own it. There is biased data that sits in there, and so our job is to try to make sure that that's not part of the informing the decision. And that's why I was saying I think it's really important to think through how do we use the data to make the 100, because we're going to make the one wrong. But can we make 100 better? Can we make the 99 better? Can we eliminate a lot of that bias? Can we use the tools to say, can we look through that bias? Can we create technologies that will help improve and open up the aperture to more people to enter into the financial system. So it's something I literally think about every day, and an important part. And again, sort of why I issued the challenges of how do we work together from a society to use the tools to improve and bring more people into the system versus using the tools to more efficiently keep people out of the system. If that makes sense. We're totally aligned.
We may have time for just two more questions, ma'am. Sorry, because we do have hard stops for the conference to proceed on time. So one here and one here. Sorry about the folks who are standing otherwise. Please.
Hello, my name is Yeju, and I'm a fourth-year business major, and I was blessed to participate in the...
I saw your hand go up, yeah.
Yeah, Truist Immersive Experience. So something that you talk about a lot is purpose, and it's something that my dad also talked about. He'd always tell me to live a life with purpose. And now that I'm a senior, it kind of feels like I'm like,
oh no, I really have to do this now?
Yeah, like there's a lot of pressure on me to live a purpose life in the real world. And so I just have a question for you, like life advice. How do you find purpose or live a purpose-driven life?
Yeah, I think trying to establish your framework for what is your personal purpose and what you're trying to and what you want to achieve in the world, and then I think about it like it's a better everyday kind of thing. I try to hold myself to a certain standard that I don't achieve every day. Did I do things that were purposeful today? Did I do things that help our teammates, that help society, that help our clients? And I sort of lay my head on the bed at night, think, okay, well, I didn't achieve all of it, but I have tomorrow, and I can continue to do better and continue to add to that. And I think, it sounds like your father just gave you great advice. Just have that guidepost. I mean, the wind's going to blow you lots of different directions, but if you have that North Star, you always have a way to get recentered towards that purpose. And it's a journey, not a destination.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Van Brederode, and I'm a master's student in quantitative finance here at Georgia Tech. And I just have a question about general thought processes and decision-making on a daily basis, specifically in the context of being CEO at such a high level of impact. Now, a lot of the times you're faced with critical decisions on a daily basis, and as a result, these critical decisions can reverberate in effect into the future, sometimes 10, 20, 30, maybe even more years into the future. And I was curious to how you think about making decisions on a daily basis while balancing all of the different interests of all the stakeholders in the particular business, and how you, if you have any particular heuristics or guidelines that you follow so that you make rational decisions, even in environments when people can get emotionally clouded.
Right. The first thing that you do and I do is I surround myself with a inclusive, diverse, competent, team-oriented, purpose-driven leadership team and board. So I think about that very consciously. Am I getting all the different elements in there? So because we all come from decisions from our own biases. I tell people the biggest advantage I have at Truist is I've been here 40 plus years. The biggest disadvantage I have at Truist is I've been here 40 plus years. And I try to think about that every day. It's like this. Don't get caught up in my own biases. Try to make sure that the aperture's open. And the only way to do that is to bring a really good network around me that brings a lot of those different decision frameworks into it. The second thing I try to do is I have leadership principles that are I have to make them simple so I can remember them, and it's simple. It's bring purpose to the work. So always think about it. We bring purpose to the work. And bring clarity from complexity. So I think my job is to make it easy, not make it hard. So when I'm making decisions and trying to think about them, I try to think about them in a context of, can I bring clarity to that decision? Can I take all that information that I've just received and sensitize it in a way that makes it clear? And so teammates can understand it, shareholders can understand it, communities can understand it, and then you just have to live by, your decisions. If you've done all the framework, you've built all the tools, you've made them in a comprehensive way, then you have to own it. I mean, part of the another principle is when in doubt, decide. I mean, you have to make perspective is critically important.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill. What a wonderful conversation. Really appreciate it. And now I know one of my purposes is to be happy all the time, so I think I can find a job with you at Truist. And,
there are a lot of students that stood up here that may be ahead of you. I don't know how to tell you that, but you have a great team.
So, and the next, let me announce the next one before I invite the students who participated in that to the stage. But I certainly appreciate all of you being here, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the conference today as well. We will continue our Tech Talks business sessions next week. On Thursday, March 27th, we will be joined by Mark Bigor, CEO of Equifax, and this session on March 27th is a special edition as well as part of the Georgia Tech Atlanta Fed Household Finance Conference. So I hope to see you there as well.